Hi, I'm Jennifer of Celtic Knot Crochet, and today in this video I'll be showing you how to make the Celtic Christmas Bag Charm. The Celtic Christmas Bag Charm is a new free pattern on my blog that you can find at CelticKnotCrochet.com. It uses simple stitches and easy knot weaving techniques so you can make one in no time at all. If you look carefully at this pattern, you'll see that it not only can be made as a snowflake, but you can also make it into a star. And it's very easy to do both. All you need to know how to do are chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. That's it. I also provide a free printable Celtic knot diagram to help you weave this knot. If you like this project, make sure to give us a thumbs up and don't forget to click to subscribe. And while you're at it, click share and send this to a friend who you know would love to make one as well. Let me know in the comments below if you made the snowflake version or the star version and who you gave it to. I'd love to hear about your projects. This is a special project that I made for Yarnsgiving 2025 that starts on October 11th. That's I Love Yarn Day. Yarnsgiving is a joyful campaign that encourages making with yarn and giving to others during the season of gratitude. From cozy home decor and charming party favors to heartfelt handmade gifts, Yarnsgiving is all about using your craft to spread warmth and kindness. Let's get started. Let's go over the supplies that you'll need for our bag charm project. Remember, you could make this to look like a snowflake or a star. So you'll need different colors depending on which version you're doing. But I did use size 3 cotton crochet thread. I love the Aunt Lydia's crochet thread. It's called Aunt Lydia's Crochet Thread Fashion 3. Comes in so many great colors. So this here will be used to help us weave the Celtic knot, but it comes in a really pretty white. But you could also use Lion Brand 24/7 cotton in the DK weight. That's what I used to make the star. And if you want something super sparkly like this one, I just love how this one looks for a star, I used this yarn here. You can find all different kinds of metallic yarn online. I can put a link in the description below for some options. And it's about the same size because it's very thin, about the same size as the size 3 crochet cotton. And just so you know, for the edging on this, I used this color that I have. Again, it's old, it's been in my stash for years. It's called size 5. It's a little thicker than size 3, but not much. And it's natural and gold. And I'll put a link to something similar in the description below, but that gives you a really neat metallic look for the whole project. Another thing that I like to use, as you can see here, that I've put a nice silver edging around each of the pieces, and I like to use this. This is DMC Pearl Metallic or Metallic Pearl embroidery floss. It has the number 5 right there. You can find it at your local craft store or online. And it comes in pretty metallic colors. So I love the golds and the silvers. Looks great for Christmas projects. But you do want to make sure that you open up the big loop and then wind it onto a card. You can buy these little embroidery floss cards, or you could even just use an index card that I fold in half. And then I like to save these labels and tape them on so I remember which color they are. Make sure to take time for this step.
If you don't, it'll turn out into a big knotted mess, and you don't want that. You want to get straight to your project. You'll also need a 2.75mm crochet hook, a yarn needle, but I like to use for small projects an embroidery needle that has a smaller eye so it works well with your project. You'll want at least 4 stitch markers. I like these locking kind by Clover. Remember, all these supplies will be listed in the description below. And if you want to make it into a bag charm, you want to get a bag clip like this. There's many different options for bag clips. You could also just have it be attached by a long chain length, and you don't need to get any hardware. We'll also be using some fabric stiffener to add stability to our project. Really helps it look its best. And we have a couple other supplies that I'll go over that will be used to help us weave the Celtic knot. To make our Celtic Christmas bag charm, you're going to make 3 separate cords. And if you look here, you can see they're sort of like an oval in shape. We're going to make 3 of them, and we're going to edge them with a metallic edging, and then we're going to weave them together. And lastly, if you want to add the snowflake edging, you would work it with your crochet hook around the outside edge. Here you can see I've already completed 2 of our 3 cords that we're going to need to make this project. So let me show you how to make one of the cords. You'll make 3 all the same color. I have mine different colors. You'll see why when we go to weave the knot. So you'll want to put your slip knot on your hook, and you're going to chain 41. Now when we work our stitches, we're going to work in the back bar of the chain. So here is our front of the chain, and it looks like V's or a braid. And we're going to turn the chain over, and we're going to work into the back bar, that back bump. So we're going to skip the first chain and insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a single crochet, and we're going to do 5 more just like that. 2, 3, 4, 5, and we want a total of 6. Okay, so we have 6 single crochets right here. Next we're going to do a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, put our hook into that back bump, yarn over, pull through the stitch, then yarn over, pull through all 3. Next we're going to be making one of these points that you see right here. So we need to have some taller stitches. So we're going to do a double crochet. So we have to yarn over first, put our hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to accentuate the point by doing a chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch right in the top of the stitch, and this here is the top of the stitch, and I like to go into that next loop just below the top. So I'll show you that again. So the top of the stitch is right here, this. We would normally go right through there, and I'm going to pick the loop that's just below the top. And I'm going to put a slip stitch, which is yarn over and pull through everything. And that just helps give this nice little point. And then I'm going to put a double crochet back into that same stitch we just worked in, that same chain. And you can see how that's creating a point. Now before we move on, I want to use my stitch markers, and I'm going to mark that chain 1 at the top of the stitch, right there. And I want to mark that chain, the bottom right here, where I've squeezed those 2 stitches in. I want to mark the bottom. Now I'm going to work another half double. So I yarn over, put my hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And here I've completed one pointed side of my cord. Now I'm going to work a single crochet in the next stitch and in the next 16. So I want a total of 17 single crochets. So this is what your cord would look like so far. We have the top chain 1 marked and the bottom of the stitches marked. And now we're ready to work on the other point. So now I'm going to do another half double, yarn over, put my hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And now I'm going to do a double crochet. Double crochet in the next stitch. Now we're going to do that chain 1, and I'm going to, here's the top of that stitch I just made, and I want to go in that loop just below with a slip stitch. Put my hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull through everything, and then a double crochet in that same chain again. And before we move on, I'm going to mark the chain 1 space with the stitch marker and the bottom of the stitch, that chain that I worked everything into. Next we're going to do a half double crochet. And then we should have 11 chains left, and I'm going to fill those with a single crochet in each one. So 11 single crochets to finish out my cord. And this is what your cord should look like. Go ahead and cut about 5 or 6 inches from the end, yarn over, pull through to knot it, and we're ready to add the edging. To add the edging to our cord, we're going to start at the beginning of the cord, and this is where you don't have any yarn tails, and it's the shorter end before the point. You can see your 2 points. And this has a long end here, and this one is shorter. So that is our beginning. And I'm going to use some of the gold metallic embroidery floss. And I'm going to put my slip knot on my hook. And we want to work in the back loop only. So normally we would put our hook under both loops like this. But for this edging, I'm going to insert my hook down through the center of all those stitches like this and pick up only that back loop. So put my hook into the back loop, yarn over, pull through the stitch and through the loop on my hook. That's a slip stitch. Try it again. Yarn over, pull through everything. And it gives you this nice braided looking edge along the outside edge of your cord. Now you could see that this embroidery floss is a little bit thinner than the red. So just make sure you do it nice and even and loosely so it doesn't make your cord cinch up. Now we've gone across to the first stitch marker, which means here we are at that chain 1 space. So I'm going to put a slip stitch into that chain 1 that we made earlier, and I'm going to add another chain 1. And now I'll continue in the remainder of the stitches across this side with the slip stitch. And by adding that chain 1, it enhances that point that we want. Now I've come up to my next stitch marker where there is the next chain 1 space. So I put my hook into there, yarn over, pull through everything, and now add the chain 1 and then continue with my slip stitches across this edge of the cord. This slip stitch edging is optional, but I highly recommend because it really makes your Celtic knot design pop. You can really see the overs and unders, and it makes it look more complicated and more intricate than it actually is. So far we have this nice slip stitch edging going across one side of our cord. So now we want to work along the other side of the cord, this back side here, and we're going to do it the same way, but to get there without having to reattach our yarn takes too much time. We're going to chain 1 and just put our hook somewhere into the side here of that last single crochet and do another slip stitch and then chain 1 one more time, and now we're ready to work across this side. And put my hook through the center of the top of the stitch so I pick up that back loop only, and I continue making the nice loose slip stitches until I get to the next stitch marker. We put those stitch markers in so we don't have to count. We just go across till we see them. So for the lower 2 stitch markers, when we get to them, this means we're just going to skip that stitch. So remove that, and here's that stitch right there. I'm going to skip it and work in the next one. And that's it. This just helps make that point even pointier. And continue across to the last stitch marker, and I'll be skipping that stitch as well. And here I am right here at the next stitch marker, my last one. Remove it. This is the stitch it was marking. I'm going to skip it and go on to the next one. I just have a few more stitches to work my slip stitch in. And there we go. Now we have our slip stitch edging along both edges of the cord, and we have the nice pointed ends. So I'm going to cut about 5 inches from the end of my gold floss, and I'll yarn over, pull through, make a nice knot, and now we're ready to prepare for weaving. So you want to make 3 of the cords just like we made the first one, and I put mine in different colors to help us with the weaving step. But before we weave, we're going to take 2 of the cords and we're going to sew these ends together so we have a completed oval shape. So I just use these yarn tails and I thread one onto my needle, and you can turn it over so you're looking at the wrong side if you like. And I go up through the other side of the cord and then back down through the first side of the cord. So I'm just doing a whip stitch across the ends. Do it 2 or 3 times to secure it. This won't show because it will be hidden under another cord. And then I take the 2 yarn tails and tie them in a double knot, like so. Okay, so that's what you want. You want to do that just with 2 of your 3 cords. Tie them together so you have this oval shape. And just so you know, this should be approximately 5 3/4 inches long, and it's almost a 1/2 inch wide. It's a little bit less than a 1/2 inch wide. After you've sewn those ends together, you can weave all these yarn tails in at this point. It'll help you with weaving the knot. So I just feed the needle through the back layer of the stitches, making sure it doesn't show on the front. And I just weave it in about 1 inch or so. We're going to be using fabric stiffener, so that will help prevent any of these yarn tails from coming out. And I'll do the same thing with the gold. Can use it to sew together some of the edges of the cord if you want. And then same thing. Just find those loops on the back of the stitches and pull it through. 1/2 inch to 1 inch. The fabric stiffener will keep those in place. So you want to do that on your 2 cords that you've sewn together, and then we'll be ready to weave the Celtic knot. Now we're ready to weave our Celtic knot. First you want to get a piece of cork board. It's about 1/4 inch thick, and this one's about 6 inches by 6 inches. That's plenty big enough. You could also use a blocking board, or foam core poster board works well too. And if you're in a real pinch, you can use cardboard. Then you'll want to print out the free printable diagram, and remember, there are 2 options for this. This is for right-handers, and then there is a separate one for left-handers. All left-handers crochet in the opposite direction of righties, so it would help them to have an opposite diagram as well. But they do the same exact steps, and you'll be able to watch a left-handed video tutorial for this. So if you haven't found that on my YouTube channel, make sure you click in the description below and you'll find one just for you. And then you'll also need some straight pins. And I'm going to pin the diagram onto my cork board, like so. And before we start weaving, it's a good idea to look at the diagram and let your brain kind of digest what's going on. So if you see, we have our 3 cords intertwined, And there's a neat way that you can weave this knot that doesn't happen often, and I'll show you the trick. So if you look here, you can see the asterisk, and that's where we're going to end up putting our third cord and weave it around. And this is why I made my cords 3 different colors, so they would match up with this diagram. But everything's in a different color, so it looks easier to your brain. But when you put them all together, you kind of can't see how they all are put together as easily. So it's like a little illusion. So what we're going to do first is we're going to put our hook or finger on the red cord, cord number 1, and just follow that around. Then we'll put our finger on the green one and follow that around. And then if we put our finger at the asterisk for the white path, you'll see that this end of the cord is going to be hidden under the red one, and then we're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. So for this last cord, that's where we're going to do the weaving, and it's going to alternate, so that'll help us know if we're doing it the correct way. Another tip for you is that you can have another printout of the diagram sitting next to your work surface, and then you can refer to this because sometimes it gets hard to see the path of the knot under your cords. So you can look to your right or to your left and take a peek, and sometimes that helps you. So step number 1 is we're going to take the red cord, and we can see where we joined everything, and I'm going to place it right on top of the red path, lining up those points, pinning wherever you like. The pins are to kind of give you an extra pair of hands to hold these things in place. So there you go. We're just going to pin that right there on the red oval. Next, we're going to take the second cord, which is the green cord, and here we see those joins, and we're going to lay that, I want to go around the pin I put down, and we're going to go right on top of the red cord. So we don't have to do any weaving yet. We're just placing it on top. It's kind of neat how it works out. And I just want to make sure that all the parts of this cord stay on the green path. If it slides out kind of like this or too skinny, it's going to be hard to see where to put the white one when we're ready. Now we're ready to add the third cord, and I made it white, and we want to start at the beginning of the cord. So can you tell which one is the beginning? The beginning is the side with the shorter length before the point. This has a long length, and that's our end. So I'm going to start here with the shorter length. I'm going to get a couple more pins, and we're going to start, if we look on our extra diagram, where the asterisk is right here. So this is the red one, and we're going to tuck it under the red one and then work along that white path. So right here is the red, and we're going to tuck it right there, and you see the asterisk hiding under there. Now we can put our yarn tails on the yarn needle and use that to help us go under, because this is a small-ish project and sometimes it's hard to get our fingers under those cords. So that's a little tip. You can use your yarn needle to help you. You could also use your crochet hook like this. You could grab those yarn tails. I like to leave them on for now because I'm going to use them later to sew things together. Okay, so that's what we want to do first, is tuck the beginning right under there. And I'm going to pin that in place so it doesn't move around on me. And now I'm going to follow the white path. You can see here I got to match the points up. So I put my point right there, pin it in place. And now I'm going to go along the white path. So if I peek here, I can see it goes under the red, but over the green. Then it's going to go under the red and over the green. So I know it's going to do under, over, under, over. And same thing. You can use a larger yarn needle for this section of the project if you want. So I'm going to go under, over, under, over, like that. And then I just pull it through. Nice and gently. Making sure that the right side of my cord stays facing forward. And I just tug a little bit and I want to match up the point to point there. I'll pin that in place. And these yarn tails here are bothering me a little bit, so I'm going to use my hook to just grab them and have them go to the side a little bit. So now I just have this section right here. That's all that's left. So I ended with an over, so I know this is going to be under, and then I have to go over the green, and then I end as an under right where I began. And if you want to look here, I had over before, and now we're about to go under, over, and then end right at the asterisk. And I have my yarn tails on my larger needle. I can turn this so I can angle it better. That's easier. So I'm going to go under the red, over the green, and then right out through here where I started, doing another under. And there you go. That's how you weave this Celtic Christmas Bag Charm knot. I love how this works, where you only have to really weave the first one and the other two are already finished for you. So now we're going to pin a few things in place so we can join that last cord and make sure everything's nice and secure. So what I like to do is I pin going across like that, and I'll pin over here. I want to make sure that the ends don't pop out. So pin across, and then I can take all the other pins out so I can remove this from the board. And now I'm going to turn it over, and you can see where the white cord, so it's the only cord that we haven't joined yet. All the others are all sealed up. So now I can use my smaller yarn needle because of the smaller stitches. Use those white yarn tails, and we can get a little closer here. And I'm going to do the same thing. Go through the end of the cord, the other end. And at this point I remove the pins because they're kind of holding the cord ends too far away. So here it's apart, and then bring it together. And just like I did with the other ones, I'll put these into a double knot. And I just want to make sure that all the cord ends are hidden under all the other cords, and I can adjust it a little bit. And there we go. So now I'll show you how to add the stitching around the outside edge if you want to make it look like a snowflake, and how to finish it by stiffening it and adding either the chain length or the bag clip. Before we add the edging, I recommend gluing our cords in place. So I've adjusted them to make sure that all of those cord ends that you can see here, see all the places where we attached the two ends of the cord. I want to make sure they're hidden underneath the other cords. And then I'll just take my glue gun and put a little dot right there. And wherever you think you need it. So around the outside edge is probably good, and that'll keep everything nice and secure. So you can keep going around and just a tiny dot of glue all the way around, and that'll keep your knot looking even and nothing will slide out of place. Now we're ready to work the edging if you'd like to make this into a snowflake. And what we're going to do is we're going to work behind this slip stitch edging that we put on all of our cords. That way things look their best and these nice lines don't get interrupted by other stitches. So instead of working into the slip stitch edging, we're going to work into the loops behind the slip stitch edging. So if you look on the back of your project, you'll see that there's a line of gold here and then a line of gold here created by the slip stitch edging, and then in between those two lines there are single loops like this. And that is where we're going to put our hook. Now if you'd like, you can put your hook through that loop and another one on the back, but you don't have to. But the important thing is to go in these loops behind the slip stitch edging. And if you've used two colors, it's very easy to find them. So you have the gold slip stitch edging, and then right behind you have some white loops, and we're going to go into those. And of course on this one there'll be a line of green loops, and on this one a line of red, but it's between those two lines of the gold you could see there. When we're going to start the edging, we're going to start where the arrow on your diagram points to. So it's right here in between these two cords where they overlap, this point here, and then we'll be working up to this point and then down to the next intersection and so forth. So you want to start right there, and I'm going to put my slip knot on my hook. And remembering that we're going to be going behind that slip stitch edging. And if it's hard for you to get your hook in, you can always prep it with your yarn needle. You can poke it in there and expand the loop a little bit. So I'm going to join with the slip stitch. And I'm going to work 3 chains, and then I'm going to slip stitch right in to that first chain. It gives me a nice little picot. Then I'm going to chain 5, and now I'm going to work behind the next point. And same thing, I'm just going to pick some loops that are on the back here. It might be a gold loop, it might be a green loop. I like to pick 2, and I'm going to do a slip stitch. Now I'm going to work 3 chain 3 picots, just like I did at the very beginning. I'm going to chain 3, slip stitch in the 3rd chain from my hook. Then I'm going to do that again, chain 3, slip stitch in my 3rd chain from my hook, and do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, slip stitch in that 3rd chain from my hook, 3 little baubles here, and now I'm going to go back into the center of that first picot I made to close it all up. And then I found it looks best if I put one more slip stitch into my starting stitch behind the point. And there I have this nice little detail that helps it look like a pretty crystal snowflake. Then I chain 5, and I'm going to repeat what I've already done. So I'm going to slip stitch here at the overlap right there in the valley. Working in those loops behind. Then chain 3, slip stitch in the first chain 3 space, then slip stitch back into that same stitch, and now chain 5. And I'll repeat what I did here at this point. Slip stitch, then chain 3 picots, and then slip stitch it all back together. And that's how you turn this star shape into looking like a snowflake. And when you've gone all the way around, it will look like this. Now the next step is you can sew on one of these clips, or you can do a chain length of about, I guess, let's see, 30 or 40, and sew that onto one of the points. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to stiffen our project. So I'll show you how to do that next. To stiffen our project, we're going to use this fabric stiffener by Crafter's Pick. I pick mine up at Hobby Lobby. And you can reuse your cork board from before and a piece of aluminum foil. Then you're going to want a few rust-proof pins. I have some pins that I saved just for stiffening projects. And I'm going to take my project and turn it over so it's face down on the aluminum foil. And I shake up the stiffener. I love this one because not only does it work great, it dries clear, but I can adjust how much I want to come out of the bottle with this nice turn top. And I just dab it on the back of the project, going all around. This one I decided to not put the edging on. But if you have the edging for the snowflake, you'll just want to put some stiffener on the edging as well. And then I press it in with my finger. Like so. And I put a very small amount on because I don't want it to bleed through to the front. I like to put my stiffener on the back so the front keeps its nice sheen. So a little bit might go through, but overall I don't like dousing my whole project. And then I use my pins to just hold it in place. Again, if I was doing the snowflake, I would pin each of these separate little picots so they're nice and flat and sticking out. As you can see, I've stiffened them so they're nice and they hold their shape. And just pin each of the ends and let it dry. And I like to repeat this process one more time to make sure it's nice and stiff. And we'll let that set and come back to it later and see how it looks. Now we can see how our project turned out after stiffening. Just remove all the pins and turn it over. And we have a nice Celtic Christmas bag charm. And remember, to finish off, you can sew on one of these bag clips. I just use my yarn needle and a yarn tail to just sew it right onto the end of one of my chain 3 picots. You could also chain about 40 and sew that to the top, and then you can just put this around your bag handle and fit the bag charm through there. That's another way to attach it. Or if you'd like to use this as a Christmas ornament, you can just take a Christmas ornament hanger and weave it right through one of the stitches and close it up like that. And you can turn the wire however you want, and now you have a Christmas ornament. So there are 3 different versions here of this project. I hope you enjoyed making it. Make sure to share this video with someone that you know that would like to make one too. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up and click to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Happy crocheting!